Welcome to the podcast that buffs your Hearthstone game. This is Velen's Chosen.
Not all who wander are lost.
Greetings, Visionaries, and welcome to Velen's Chosen. Whether you're a competitive player, an arena specialist, a deck-building visionary, or just like having a bit of fun, we can help you buff your game and achieve your Hearthstone goals. I am Grant Gould, down in nice, starting to even out weather, Texas. But joining me from the far north in Canada, your friend and ours, and mine, Eve Martin. How you doing tonight, Eve?
Yeah, it's starting to get cold here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Such envy.
It's like I work at a department store, like mostly women's clothes, but we also have other like children's and men's and stuff. But the winter coats are out in full gear. They're starting to put out the mittens and the hats and the scarves and it's just in time because it's starting to really get nippy.
What's
no
like
snow
the best
yet.
Coat to,
But
what's the best coat to have in Canada? Like if you like the best kind of coat.
well, it depends on where you live in Canada because there are some places where it's just not a lot of snow. It's just freezing cold. And you
Sure.
want layers because you go outside and your face will hurt. That's how cold it is. Where I live, though, it gets cold, but then it snows and then it gets almost damp and almost slushy sometimes. So you got to kind of have a waterproof thing. Otherwise, all of your stuff just gets soaking wet. And that's awful. That's no good. So, like, your boots have to be, like, waterproof. And your gloves have to be waterproof. And, like, the jacket. Like, I like the down ones. The big, fluffy, puffy down ones.
Yeah.
Because then they're lighter. You're not carrying around all of that weight with you wherever you go, but then you can just kind of put a couple layers underneath it and stay warm that way. But yeah, where my brother is in Calgary, he showed us a picture of his truck, like just covered in snow. Like under a foot of snow. And we're like, no, don't come here. Keep it where you are. Don't bring it over here.
No foreshadowing. No foreshadowing.
Yeah. Like we've had times here, because I live in British Columbia, we've had times where we didn't have snow on Christmas. December 25th rolled around and we hadn't gotten snow yet. So, Canada all over isn't always covered in snow this time of year, but it does get pretty dang cold.
No, I used to, as you may know this, I'm originally from Michigan, and
Right.
I lived in the Thumb, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump from Canada, and yeah, I can definitely vouch that not all Canada is under 8 feet of snow all the time through the winter.
We're not all built in our igloos and riding to school on our moose and
Have you ever built an igloo, Eve?
yes, actually, it's kind of one of those things because we get taught Canada's history. It's one of those things where the kids in elementary school get taught by their teachers how to build, traditional. What do we call them? We call them First Nations peoples, is what we called it.
Right.
To begin with, I think you guys called them Native Americans.
Yeah, that's what we call them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the terminology changes over the years as people get more and more, respectful, I guess we can say. So First Nations peoples is what we call them in Canada. And so we're learning all about how they build their traditional igloos. So yeah, we definitely did make some in elementary school out of the snow in our back, behind the schoolyard. And longhouses and things like that. So, but not to actually stay in, just to have fun and like roast marshmallows.
Sounds fun to me. I kind of miss being out. The thing is about campfires is it's got to be kind of chilly to make me want to sit next to a campfire.
Yeah.
I mean, we can build a campfire here in Texas, but that's like compounding the problem. Hot outside, and I want to stand next to fire.
Why
Who said
would you?
that? Nobody wants to do that. I mean, there are people that want to do that, but I'm just gonna say no sane people want to do that. I'm sorry if I offended anybody out there. You're not crazy, as long as you don't talk to yourself. I mean, as long as the voices don't talk back.
Right. As long as you don't start answering yourself.
Yeah. Well, anyways, Eve, we got a bunch of stuff in the news, so let's get crack-a-lackin' here.
Yeah, there's some exciting things. I mean, do you get the BlizzCon virtual ticket every year, or have you ever, or like,
every year I am sorely tempted. Every year I look at it, and I mean, I've even gone so far as to go to the website and get it queued up and like hover my finger over the buy button, and I just always reason myself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Although it seems like there's some really neat things. My friends who play Warcraft really hardcore really enter the virtual ticket because they're really interested in the content. And honestly, one of my good friends bought the virtual ticket, and we watched a lot of the explanations on WoW Classic and how they went through revamping it, and then Warcraft 3, and watching that stuff was really cool. That was really good content to be able to experience. Wasn't sure if I wanted to pay $50 for it, but I could see a world where if that's your jam and you really care about it and you just want that minute by minute stuff, I mean, I think it's totally worth it. It's like a pay-per-view, right? You just people will spend like that on that much or more on like a boxing match just to watch one time, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you can keep rewatching stuff, and you kind of get down to the minute like releases and stuff like that. So I think it's actually a pretty okay deal. So
I think the hard part about it is for us collectors, they always have a card back. And it's always like that one card back that's missing from your collection if you don't get it. But I'm like, oh my gosh, is a one card back worth $64.99 Canadian?
That's a lot. It just seems a lot.
Because honestly, all of the information very quickly gets sent to like all of the websites. They have pictures of all the cards that have been previewed and little short blurbs about everything that all the devs said. And, everything eventually gets to the internet. There's not really anything there that's like for your eyes only and no one else gets to see this. So it's hard. There will be kind of like how, what was it? The golden legendary that we got where the battle cries, he puts out a treasure chest. Marin the Fox?
Marin the Fox, yeah.
Yeah. So this year there's going to be that kind of legendary where it's kind of announced and then you get the golden version of it.
But everybody will get the regular version if they don't buy the ticket kind of thing.
Well, that's what happened with Marin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are we to assume that the same thing's going to happen but only BlizzCon watchers are going to get the golden one?
I'm guessing. I mean, I don't think they would change that, right? The community would be ticked.
Well, no, because before ETC was the thing that you got, right? And you had to craft that. You couldn't craft the golden version that was only available to people who had the ticket, and then you didn't have the legendary unless you crafted it.
But that was way back in the dark ages of Hearthstone, when that happened.
Before
I
cared.
don't even know if I even knew that was a thing you could do when I started playing. So
yeah, so but that gives you even less incentive. So the only truly, buyer only thing is the card back. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff for Overwatch. There's like a skin of Tyrande and Illidan.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, that stuff's cool.
I saw it and I was like, is this a fan-made thing or is this actually in the game? And then I realized it was with the ticket. I was like, wow, that's actually really cool.
I mean, it's cool, especially because Overwatch skins are... I mean, when they first released skins, it's a lot of gold. Like, they're really expensive. Like, the average legendary skin in Overwatch is 1,000. But the Tyrande Illidan skins would be like 3,000 if you were to buy with gold. I don't think you can buy them. At least not for a long time. But like the Tyrande skin, which is Symmetra, is on point. Like, it looks like you're just playing Tyrande.
Yeah. And
the Illidan skin for Genji is really cool, except we were kind of joking on how Genji's face looks very baby face. Like, they're, what I mean?
He's like feminine. This demon. Like this intimidating, gruff and strong. And that face just does not do it for me.
He looks like he's a dandy. He's like, oh, I'm Illidan. I'm going to smash you with my sword.
More like a blood elf than a night elf. Because
Yeah, he's too pretty. He's
yeah.
just too pretty.
Yeah,
I
agree.
But I mean,
maybe they'll tweak it by the time it actually comes out.
I hope they tweak it because Illidan's face is not pretty. Like he's, kind of his teeth kind of protrude more, and he kind of fought through his teeth a little bit, and
I mean, this has to be like, does he even? He doesn't have the thing over his eyes.
He doesn't.
So it's like though. In a certain timeline where he hadn't quite gone full demon, like where he was night elf, but with like demonic powers, but not quite full. Yeah. Anyway, it looks cool. And then there's a bunch of stuff for World of Warcraft. There's like Murloc pajamas or something.
Oh, dear God.
It looks amazing. People are going crazy for it.
Blizzard always releases the best swag. I mean, I don't think anybody would disagree that their swag is top notch.
Yeah. So anyway, there's that.
What's next?
And I mean, you do get to see it live and experience, BlizzCon through your computer without going there. And yeah, I gotta say, last year I was able to watch the Battle for Azeroth opening cinematic with everybody, and that does feel cool because the whole place is like yelling and screaming and
they're going nuts. The Warcraft people, the Warcraft fans or the hardcore Warcraft people are the ones that drive BlizzCon.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the other titles can try, but really BlizzCon's more about Warcraft than anything else.
Overwatch is kind of, well, they've slowed down a bit. It used to be really about like what new character they're going to reveal and all of that stuff, but they've slowed down a little bit.
It has, yeah.
But yeah, enough about BlizzCon virtual ticket. If you decide you want to get it or not. Cool thing they announced was that they wanted to do things in between expansions to keep Hearthstone interesting and keep kind of like doing things outside of just adventures and expansions. So 23, that's a lot of cards. Wild cards.
A lot of cards. Mm-hmm.
Are moving into standard for a limited time event. These wild cards are going to be added to everyone's collection. You can't disenchant them or craft them. They'll just be put in your collection, and then once the event is over, they'll be removed. So if you're like, oh, I don't have to have this card anymore, I'm going to disenchant it, you may not want to do that because after the event's over, they're going to go away again.
Yeah. Don't disenchant your Ragnaros if you already have one. Don't disenchant it because they're not. You're gonna lose. You'll have to recraft him. No,
but
that's
this
cool.
is so cool. There's some like really iconic. What are the chances we get Lotheb back?
I'd love that. I'd love to see Lotheb in standard format with the current cards.
Because he wasn't oppressive. He was just really good.
Lotheb is. Some people have argued that Lotheb is the single best card ever made in Hearthstone. Just in terms of what
is he a 5-mana 5/5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 5-mana 5/5, legendary, battle cry. Your opponent's spells cost 5 more to cast next turn.
Yep.
It's basically I'm gonna protect myself from whatever you want to do next turn because it's gonna take you all of your mana to cast like one big spell.
Yep.
And that's probably not gonna do it. Yeah.
It locks them down if they're playing any kind of combo deck, or if you're playing against priest, they can't summon anything or clear your board. And
mage, like that was my big thing against mage because I always played lots of decks that had big boards. And you just like cross your fingers when you put out all of them and buff them up and get them all ready that somebody doesn't have something that just absolutely wipes them off. You can still play Brawl on turn 10. But other than that, like you can't play any of Mage's big clear spells because they're too expensive to play on one turn. Like Blizzard, you can't play the Flame. Why does brain not work? What's the limit? Is 4
Flame
damage?
Strike?
Yeah, Flame Strike. Can't play. Like you can play Consecrate still and stuff, but only if you're like already at turn 10. If you're dropping it on turn 5, then that's pretty much they can't do anything. Which is when you want to drop it anyway. So yeah, please Lotheb. I think they pretty much said Ragnaros is coming back for sure, right?
Well, Ragnaros and Azoth are the two we know for sure. There was an alleged leaked list, which we won't. I don't think we were going to spend time on that.
Yeah.
But I liked what I saw.
I heard Yasharaj too.
Yasharaj?
Yeah.
I mean, I could see where that would be interesting. But I mean, truthfully, I'm less worried about what's coming out and more like the fact that the game is going to be drastically different in standard. Because standard, I think my big gripe with standard is it gets samey really fast. New cards come out, new expansion comes out, and within a week it's the same thing. You know what I mean?
This expansion hasn't really been like that, though. Like, do you agree? The meta seems to kind of be constantly changing and people constantly iterating.
I think more so than other expansions, but I still find myself thinking a lot of the same things. And maybe that's just the game. Sometimes I have to remind myself that, every expansion yields your top 3 or 4 decks, and it turns into a little bit of rock paper scissors. And
because I've had the opposite before, and it was extremely frustrating when there were so many decks out there that you never knew what you were going to come up against. You had no way to kind of tech against them or prepare. You had no idea what kind of hunter that was or what kind of priest that was, and that was actually really frustrating to not feel like you had any kind of a chance to play kind of tactically because you had no idea what you were coming up against and sort of what choices, like informed choices to make. So it's such a fine line between wacky craziness and you have no idea and rock, paper, scissors.
Well, I was thinking about what you were just saying, and I realized that every time I've hit legend was in metas where I knew the matchups because I played them so many times. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. My win percentage, and when I had really frustrating months was when it was just Wild West, like anything goes. And that's all well and good, especially like when an expansion drops. I like it when this like, wow, I've never seen that before. Wow, I've never seen that before. But when you're kind of sitting down and allotting time to grind ladder, and you have a lot of, I've never seen that before. What was this deck? And it happens, 4 out of 6 games. You start going, this isn't fun. I'm trying to climb, and I can't anticipate what I'm going to run into, So I think there's
you want it to be wild for a while and then settle down a bit.
Yeah, basically. But I think at some point in time, at least personally, like I can only play so many games of the same deck before I start getting a little tired of it, or against the same deck. You know what I mean? Like, and so for me, I have to really love the deck I'm playing. Mm-hmm. Like, I have to love the deck I'm playing.
Well, I try to have like a couple, right? Like at least 2 and better 3 that you like, so you can kind of switch off if you were either running into loss after loss after loss, or you do get bored. But when that moment in time where it was like every single game was against Warrior, that sucked.
No, you're right. And I think that's sort of the caveat. And I was realizing that the deck we're talking about this week, I won't get into it, is SilentNick's Anyfin Paladin. And the thing I realized that I liked about this game is it did some busted crazy stuff. Yeah, it's Paladin, does busted crazy stuff, but the games aren't long. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I don't mind playing it a lot, and it doesn't really matter who I run into. But if I start finding that if I start running into control match after control match after control match, where it's like Reno Warlock, Control Warrior, Reno Quest Priest, and it's like, gosh, I want this to be over with. I don't want to mess with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then if the game ends early or ends around turn 10, great. But if the game starts getting into we're both at fatigue, that's awful. Like, I do not like playing games to fatigue. And that's kind of what I've learned about myself over the last expansion, is because with the prominence of Warrior and, having the ability to shuffle cards into your deck after you've gone to fatigue, shuffle cards, and then do it again, and then armor up, and then Dr. Boom, and all this stuff. It's like, no, that's not the kind of game I want to play. I don't want to play that long, grindy control game, because I'm sort of a when I'm playing Hearthstone, I want to have some result for my time. You know what I mean? So if I spend an hour, I want to have maybe a few more wins than losses, not I played 3 games and I lost 2. You know what I mean? Because that's just as bad.
I find it hard to do, but I think maybe in that situation, I would just concede. Because I'd be like, I'd rather get on to the next game than just like have the life sucked out of me by the end of this one, whether I win or lose. But the funny thing is, I'm remembering when I did my climb to Legend in Wild, it ended up being such a rock, paper, scissors thing. It was either a mirror match with a couple of different changes, mage or druid. Like, that's it. That is all I faced in that
Yep.
final climb to legend. And so it got to the point where you knew exactly what cards were in everybody's deck. You knew like the ideal card they wanted to play on this turn. And then if they didn't, it was like, okay, it's on. Like, let's go,
Yeah.
go, go.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you're right. It does make it a bit easier to be more competitive and to really like get a good win percentage and get to know your deck really, really well if it gets down to like 3 or 4 decks that everyone's playing.
Yeah. And I think if you're competitive, those are the metas to get to legend faster with. But, the pros can do it, with any deck,
Right.
any time of the month, and regardless of whether or not, so it's kind of like us, plebeians here, we have to kind of have a little bit more ideal conditions.
Well, it's interesting
Anyhow.
because there was an interesting Twitter conversation with, I think it was Dave Kosak, with a couple of pros and people talking about the win percentages of different decks. And he said, there isn't that much difference in the decks that high legend people are playing and rank 5 people are playing.
No, really
The
not.
way they play them may be different,
Yeah.
but actually, like for you to say, oh yeah, the win percentage of this deck at high legend is different than the win percentage of this deck at 5 because they don't know how to play it properly or whatever. He's like, actually, I think that's kind of a fallacy. I'm not sure how much truth there is to that because they're playing against people of the same skill as them and you're playing against people of the same skill as you where you're at. So
Yeah.
the deck actually is sort of the same no matter where you put it. So it was
that's
interesting. Yeah. It was a good
Interesting.
conversation.
I hadn't really thought about that. It makes sense, though. Well, let's see. What do we have next in the queue? Oh, this is super hype. Blizzard, and the thing is by the way, the wild cards coming back into standard, those are all things we've called for on the show. Another thing we've called for is, can't we get something for 1,000 wins or 2,000 wins and yada, yada, yada? Well, ye asked and ye shall receive. Blizzard is going to add new portraits for all 9 classes after hitting 1,000 wins with each class. I'm super hyped because I already get 6 of those. You know what I mean?
That's so awesome, Grant.
And so I'm like, yeah. And it's been kind of fun on the Twitter sphere, especially because people were kind of, all right, these are my 9 classes. These are the ones I'm going to get. These are the ones I need to work on. And it's funny because I'm seeing people incentivized to win, which makes me think that there are people like myself, like Eve, who want to get all the things, and it just having a little a little point, like a little digit, and then a little prize at the end to win for playing the game is nice. A different prize, I should say.
Well, like when I play Destiny, there are so many different ways that you can play the game and show what kind of a player you are, and that's what I want for Hearthstone.
Sure.
Is like maybe I didn't get to high legend, but I played the heck out of Hunter and I have Golden Hunter. And that's a way that like when I go on and ladder and I have my Golden Hunter, it's like, look, I'm a really good Hunter player. And now there's going to be a whole nother layer to that of like 1,000 wins. That's like, there's different ways for you to have goals instead of just like only the one, which is like reach legend.
Yeah.
Collect all the card backs, or there has to be a couple of different things you can shoot for if that might be either out of your league or something you don't have the time to shoot for.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Well, and you know what, though? I think I messaged you right as soon as it came out. And I said, dang it, I just got 500 wins with Warrior, and I don't want to play Warrior anymore. Now I might have to. I hope the portrait sucks, because then I won't have to get it.
I hope I never have to go back.
500 wins is the hardest 500 wins I've ever had. Priest isn't too far away, and Shaman's not too far away. But those are the 2 I don't have 1,000 wins with.
Well, what it looks like so far from the ones we've seen is alternates of the basic heroes.
Yeah.
So Anduin, Jaina, things like that. So it would be Garrosh.
They seem like they're kind of current incarnations or more recent incarnations. Like Jaina looks like currently in WoW, not like she looked like
doesn't.
10 years ago.
She's got red
and
hair.
then-
She does
and
not have red
Anduin-
hair in WoW.
Right. Oh,
So
she
like
doesn't have red
what I
hair?
no. So what I think is it's like a fantastical alternate version of them
Oh.
because Jaina does not have red hair in WoW. I think it's like in World of Warcraft, there's 3 different kinds of mages you can be. You can go down the
Yeah.
path of frost, fire, or arcane. So
Yeah,
it looks
yeah.
like fire Jaina, like a fire version. But yeah,
Fire
she's
Jaina.
never looked like that in World of Warcraft to my understanding. So I think it's just kind of let's take these characters and put them in a different light.
Her hair's not red, but she has like a red stripe in her hair, right? Or
No,
it
it's
looks like it, right?
It's white. She has a white.
Her hair's
stripe.
white. Her hair's white with like a red stripe. Yes.
Blonde,
It's white in the portrait. It's white in the portrait.
blonde streak.
Blonde
Not
streak.
red.
But like the original one.
Yeah.
But what is it in the new portrait? I'm blanking out. I know what it looks like.
It's
but
gone
as
red.
yet, I don't know what it looks like.
So she's a blonde, and in the new hero portrait, it's red. She's not a redhead. So that's like,
Are you sure?
yep,
I don't know that it's red.
because she's got like fire.
She's got fire, but I don't think her hair's red.
1,000 wins mage portrait.
We'll settle this once and for all.
Yeah, she's got like an orange streak in her hair in this picture that I'm looking
You
at.
you think it's just the
And, like, her
light that
eyes
we
are
casted
orange.
from the fire? The artist thought about the her hair's white.
And like
It's just that-
her cloak is orange and her like vest is orange. I think it's like a reimagining of her as like a fire mage, and the
Yeah.
orange streak in her hair and everything is like.
yeah, but her hair is definitely white with there's a blonde streak and an orange streak. But at least from what I'm looking at, Gul'dan looks way cooler. Gul'dan looks so much cooler. Looks more like the Gul'dan that I wanted him to look like.
Gul'dan
Anduin
looks
actually-
like the second Gul'dan.
Yeah.
Alternate.
And
timeline
Anduin actually
Gul'dan.
has Varian's sword in the original artwork. You can't see it in the teaser,
Oh.
but they released the Charlemagne's name is?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got Charlemagne.
Really?
So they're more
I
modern.
want to see that.
Just look up the original art. I saw it on Twitter today. It was like, oh, this is cool. At first I wasn't too happening on the Anduin art, but then I saw the full art and I was like, oh, that's much cooler.
You know what?
Maybe I'll
It
get
would
that
have
one.
been really cool if they had maybe put on his new helmet.
His helmet. But then people were like, who's this guy? Is that
It's
Varian?
true.
You know.
And he looked
They
more
would've
like
probably-
a paladin with the helmet on anyway. So that.
This is very true. But anyways, so new things to get at, and more. This is the kind of thing that would make me want to keep just playing the game. You know, like I was, I'm at a new school and we were talking games because one of my students was playing Mario Kart, for phone, and we were talking Hearthstone, and they said, "You play Hearthstone?" They seemed surprised by that. I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Well, how good are you?" I've never been asked that question. How good are you? And I'm
Oh
like,
my
"Well, I have a
gosh! Because kids, right? They
podcast,
don't have
'cause
a
kids.
filter.
Because kids. And I said, I've done a lot of things. I said I've hit Legend a bunch of times, and I said I've done 12-0 on Arena, and I have this many wins. I have all golden hero portraits and this and that. And they're like, and it was lost on them. They had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, oh. But then as I was going through, it's like, yeah, in a weird way, you could say I've been trying to beat the game, right? Trying to just kind of achieve all the things you can achieve in a game. So, and it's like, well, what else is there to do? And I find myself wanting things to do in the game to have little, like you said, little like indicators of where you're at as a player, like achievements, if you will. So I'm glad that they're kind of thinking along this line for sure.
I want achievements. Like I literally want achievements. I want a tab you can go to that says how many times you've done this, how many times you've done that, how many times you've done that, and like a I don't know. Like
You know what I want to see? I want to see
title.
card backs for doing absurd things. Like, for example, if you can pull off an OTK on turn 2 or turn 3 or something
Ooh.
like that. You know what I mean?
I don't
You know what I
want to
mean?
see
Or-
that at all because then that would incentivize people to try to do that.
Yes, but they probably won't win very many games. But so this will be spending their time doing that. You know what I mean?
I think that
And-
it would be fairly easy to put a title above your name. So if there was a title associated with being like a really good hunter player.
Hunter Master.
Yeah. some kind
Main.
of title that was like, so it'd be Lore Master Eve the Hunter, or the Hunter Lore Master Eve, or something like that. You know, it would be right by your name and give you a title associated with whatever achievement. Because that, I don't know, that'd be like a simple, easy thing to put in, and then would give you a bit more. Because what they kind of want to be able to give people is a way to show how different they are. You know, like what card back you choose to use, what hero portrait. Like, give us a couple more things to make us different and make us stand out.
Yeah.
But the truth is, the more hero portraits they put in the game, the harder it is for people to tell what it is they're facing immediately.
It's true.
You kind of have to look at the
know
hero
it.
power and go, oh yeah, okay, it's a totem. That means it's a shaman. Because sometimes it's like, what is this again?
Well, especially with like the Thunder King. I was like, Thunder
Yes.
King, Shaman. Because there's nothing that says Shaman about Thunder King, you know.
Nah, to me, not really. But you can always look at the hero power because that's always the same. So that's good.
Yeah.
But especially for new players, that could be a thing that could be a little bit intimidating to come and be like, who the heck is this? And what is this? And are they playing a class that I've never seen before? Because it's not one of the classic ones. So I don't know. I don't know if they don't want to.
New players
don't wanna go
could be
too crazy.
disoriented by that.
Yeah.
So, well, let's see here. What else have we got? They're going to give us more information about the new wild cards being infused. They haven't leaked any more of them out so far. They're going to. There's been talk about modifying the daily quests. So, like, if you roll like a 60 gold and you re-roll it, it'll automatically get you an easier one to complete. Right?
Yes. Like 60s will turn into 50s, which are
So-
they're going to change them to make them easier. Yeah.
There was a little bit of dissent about that, but I could see both worlds being fine. Honestly,
If you have
Some
a
people
60 and you're re-rolling it, then you're tossing the dice anyway.
right? Yeah, it's kind of a net zero, I think.
Like, just
at the
do
end
the
of
60.
day. Just do the 60.
There are going to be more dungeon run style tavern brawls. Dual class arenas will
Oh,
return.
yeah. I'll be playing Arena when that happens. I love dual class. It's fun. Legendary quest rewards.
Right? And there was something else. Oh, yeah, the search terms. They're changing them. Well, they're adding to them for when you're
Right,
searching
right.
for cards in your collection, because some people are like, how do you spell snip snap again? And they forget that there's like a 1 in it, and the card
Yeah,
doesn't
right.
come up, and then I just press in like SN. You try to get all the ones that start with SN and it comes up. But they're going to kind of take into account that people don't know how to spell things for the more difficult to spell cards, and actually put those search terms in so that if you do just go snip snap, it'll come up.
Snip, snap, I was taking a bath.
And just like kind of the ones that they know are difficult to spell, they're going to like give you a little bit of help by putting those in the search terms. And then there's a new Hearthstone deck builder. Like right in the Blizzard website. You can go straight to the Blizzard website and build decks from there, which is a new thing that they're like, hey, come check it out.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw that on the internet. Now that you mention it, I remember seeing that. I'm trying to think if that's going to be superior than the stuff we've been using. Is it going to be because it's kind of a new thing that we have to sort of kind of port like our backlog of information over? I don't
Right.
know.
I'm trying to think of like how exactly this helps us with all of the things that we already have. I know that you can create deck codes.
Yeah.
And import deck codes. So maybe if you wanted to make a deck with all of the cards, but you don't own all the cards, you could go here, make the deck with all the cards that you want to put in it, make the deck code, and then post it for other people. Even though you wouldn't have been able to from your own collection because you don't own all the cards.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of felt like this isn't for me because I already have different places that I go to and get deck recipes and things like that. But it's got to be for somebody. Or maybe they just thought it was time. It was like, there's all of these other websites that are outside of playhearthstone.com.
Getting their traffic. Yeah.
And now you can just come to us. And like there's a wild button and you pick a class and...
Yeah, I remember asking that. We asked that question. I don't remember what the context was, but we asked the question. Liz, when are you going to just make it to where your website is the hub for what we want to do? You know what I mean? Why are we having to outsource everything? I think that was sort of I think that conversation was started about tournament mode. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. You should have your own tournament mode instead of like Battlefy and things like that.
Sure.
But you know what? The truth is that they're really good at making video games, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're really good at making websites or that they have the manpower to keep them up.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah,
fan people are amazing people.
Mm-hmm. True story.
They have time, they have energy, they have like a lot of things that the dev team is so focused on everything that they have to get it done and get accomplished that they just could not keep up with the amazing things that fans can do for websites like this and for things like, the arena where you put in your cards and it tells you which one to pick and things like that. Like that. Mm-hmm. That would take so much time and energy away from all the rest of the things that they have to do that it just makes more sense for fans to keep this stuff up than like who really goes.
Well, I'd rather
to
have Blizzard spend their time on trying to make their game great. That's what I'd rather. If I'm paying them money for it, I'd rather have them do that than let's have all these bells and whistles but no good content. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
like the jack of all trades. If you spread yourself all over the place, then you're not good at any of them. And I mean, that's kind of traditional for Blizzard games anyway. The amount of stuff out there that's available for new players and anyone who wants to learn anything about World of Warcraft, I bet they have more information on World of Warcraft than they do on any other subject on the internet. It would not surprise me at all. And it's all the fans. Like the amount of stuff that they've put together with their own time and energy is nothing short of amazing.
True story. Well, so I guess we'll transition to the next subject. So, Eve, I haven't put anything in the show notes because I just kind of want to see you react and your I don't know, raw reactions to some of these questions. So, some of us in the Hearthstone community got sent a email survey in our email inboxes that said, "Hey, would you help Blizzard out and take a survey?" So, I just thought it'd be cool to talk about some of the questions that we were asked in the survey. I took it fairly recently, earlier today. And I'm not going to get too exhaustive because it could get really monotonous, but just kind of wanted to talk about and get Eve's reaction on some of the questions that I was asked during the survey because, Blizz says they're trying to make their game better. So here's the kinds of questions they asked. All right, Eve, here you go. So the first round of questioning basically was asking me which games, and it gave me a huge array of games, popular games, that I had either played in the last 30 days, played but not in the last 30 days, heard of but never played, and never heard of it. Those are the choices I was allowed to have. And they asked me all the usual suspects: Hearthstone, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon Go, Magic the Gathering, the physical card game, Candy Crush, Elder Scroll, Artifact, Heroes of the Storm, World of Warcraft, Dota, Clash of Clans, etc., Auto Chess. All the, the new shinies, the things that you see stuff, achievement on Twitter and things like that.
Okay.
So they're kind of like...
So like you play Hearthstone, what else do you play?
Or you play Blizzard games at all. What else do you play? You know what I mean? I think you'll see, I think this was gauged based on, this was sent to me as a Hearthstone player because there's a lot of Hearthstone questions. So it was, I wonder if they tailor their surveys to like what they see you maining as a game. They asked me how satisfied I was with Hearthstone and gave me range from very unsatisfied to very satisfied. Thought that was interesting, just blunt. They asked me to compare. Yeah, they asked me to compare other mobile games I've played, how satisfied I am with Hearthstone's performance with the following. So, like, questions like game control, frequency of crashes or freezes, battery usage, app update process, overall performance, and startup and load up time.
Oh, that's amazing because that's not where my brain went to begin with. Like, performance is just like, did I enjoy the game compared to other mobile games I've played? And that's where my brain was thinking. And then you started talking all this technical stuff, and I was like, I
mean, honestly, like just overall, I've been pretty satisfied with how the game loads up and stuff like that. I will say that one of the things I haven't really liked is, how the reconnect thing? Yes. A lot of times I find that I go to reconnect and it reconnects so slow. It's actually faster for me to close the app and then reconnect.
Okay. I should have done that because I had a game that disconnected the other day and I waited so long. And I was so close to winning. Oh.
Well, that, and you know how like if you go idle, like the app doesn't close, so the client doesn't close, but you can't connect to a game, and it'll say, "Hang on, reconnecting," and the little swirly thing goes around. It's faster for me just to close the app and to reopen it from start because it loads quick. It loads quicker than it reconnects.
Oh,
If
okay.
that
That's
makes
a
any
good
sense.
good advice for our listeners then, because you play a lot of mobile. Like for me,
Yeah.
when I'm climbing, I don't
Mhm.
trust mobile for my climb. I'd rather go on my
I live in
computer.
the third biggest city in the continental United States. We have great internet, so it like mobile is fine. So, but I almost play exclusively on mobile. In fact, that was a question they asked me: is you selected mobile? What percentage of the time do you play on mobile, tablet, and PC? And I put 95% on mobile and 5% on PC because I do play on PC from time to time, especially if I'm like playing against my daughter or something like that.
It just burns me so bad when you get a loss due to a disconnect that I hate doing it when I'm seriously trying to climb, that I'd rather
Well,
just be on a...
it's so much better than it used to be though. Like for example, one of the ones I noticed was I would do this thing where I would start playing a game in my house, and then I would go take a walk down the street, and it would disconnect me from my house's internet, and it wouldn't be able to reconnect me on my phone plan, on my data plan, and then I would just forfeit the game. But now, in probably the last 6 months or so, now I can walk out of the house, it'll freeze, it'll go reconnecting, and it'll reconnect me like boom, real fast. So that's something like they've definitely improved, and I appreciate it because I forget, because otherwise I have to remember to like, oh, I'm gonna go on a walk in a minute. If I'm gonna start a game, oh, I better switch off my Wi-Fi and switch on data, then queue the game up. So it kind of idiot proofs me a little bit. Let's see what else. They asked me financial questions. Which of the following Hearthstone bundles were you aware of before today? And it ticks off like the bundles, the pre-purchase, the legendary. Let's see, what is it? Tombs of Terror pre-purchase of the solo adventure, the 80-pack pre-purchase, the 50-pack pre-purchase, the Explorers bundle. You know, like they want to know if I'm aware of how in the know I am about like purchasing things. Right? They're trying to see if I'm spending money on the game. Because
Well,
you ever
also,
get the
like
thing,
when you log in, do you even pay attention to the little thing at the bottom that says, here's a deal, do you want to try it? Or does that just kind of like go right by?
well, have you had the experience where like they release the pre-order bundle? You know, we're on the show, we're in the know. We buy it, and then like 2 or 3 weeks later, you get like a pop-up notification on your phone if you allow notifications, and it says, "Hey, for sale now." And I'm sitting there going, "But I bought it like 3 weeks ago."
Yeah. Why are
I
you
bought
still
it on
trying to
its
get me to
release
get
date.
it?
Why don't you know? Are you going to give me another option to buy it or what? So no, that's interesting. It says it asked me which of the saviors of Oldham, to get real specific with saviors of Oldham, which bundles did I purchase ahead of release? Adventure, 80, 50, Explorer bundle. Of course, all of them, you know, except for the 50. I usually can't afford a 50 and then an 80. That's just too rich
Yeah,
for my
you
blood.
just pick one of the two.
Then it asked a lot of opinion, like how much do I dislike or like the following bundles of Savior Oldham. So it ticks off the different bundles and ranges from strongly dislike to strongly like. So, you know, total opinion. They asked me about the value, same thing. The value of the bundles, you know, from very poor value to very good value. And there's five choices.
It depends on how many legendaries I open.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I would actually say that a dollar per pack is good value per pack. Where I felt like the value was lacking is I just feel like, especially from the aspect of getting new players involved, I think the pity timer for legendaries needs to be lower. I think it needs to be 20 packs for a legendary, not 40. Because here's the thing, is all of us are going to play the game anyways. Those of us who are investors, we're going to get them, usually because we have such a dust store. We're going to get those legendaries and spend the same amount of money we'd spend anyways. You know what I mean?
I'd say 30.
I'd be okay with that too. But a new player, they can't do it. They just can't keep up with it because they don't have the longevity. Like you or I walk, I mean, I don't know about you. I know I do. Because of like, you know, being able to disenchant stuff, I walk into every expansion with about 8,000 gold on average and about 5,000 dust. I'm ready to go. So anything I don't pull, I can craft it. And then just through the cycle of time, I get all that back again. So having more legendaries more often makes me feel like I get a better value, and I really won't spend any more or less on the game. Does that make sense? I'm still going to spend the money.
Yeah, I don't know. It does get to the point where it's like they do have to make money on the game. And
But they will, though.
they give away the free legendary at the beginning of all the expansions. Everyone gets a free legendary. Then you get one in your first 10 packs, so that's 2. Then if you get the 50, that's going to guarantee you another one. So that's 3. Like if you have really, really bad luck, because the pity timer, is the pity timer really 40?
Yeah, it's 40. Confirmed.
Then that's 3.
Yeah.
Because you get one in
See,
the
that's
first
thing is,
10 and you get one in the next 40. And you get
I
the
feel
free
that
one they give you.
You know, I feel like I'm really salty if I open 80 packs and I get 2 legendaries. That just seems really, really chintzy. And this is total opinion, folks. I mean, feel free to disagree with me. 2 legendaries for 80 packs feels like I spent a lot of money and I didn't get a lot of value. If I get 4 legendaries, though, that feels... I mean, because when you think about it, just in the class legendaries, there's 18 of them. And so if I spend $80 and I get 4, that's still a lot of legendaries I don't have. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Not to
well, they
mention
don't
the
want you to
neutrals.
have everything that you need at the beginning of the expansion. There has to be some kind of working towards, you know, trying to get gold to buy more packs, working towards crafting, working towards getting like some kind of... The expectation of having everything that you need at the very beginning of the expansion, I don't think is something that they want you to have.
Well,
Gives you
and I
goals to
get
work
it
towards.
on principle, but practically, people, especially like myself that have been dug in for 4 or 5 years, we're going to get it anyways. You know, a lot of people get most of the stuff because they have stores. They've either saved up gold or they have just a lot of dust lying around. There's people that have so much dust lying around they could literally buy every card in the game with their dust. You know what I mean? That they don't have if they didn't pull it. And so it's kind of like, how much blood are they going to squeeze out of the turnip by only you know what I mean, by offering legendaries? And the thing is legendaries don't even mean you win. You know, having the legendaries doesn't make you necessarily have the best deck, because certainly a lot of the legendaries they make are not good.
Yeah,
you know what
except
I mean?
with this expansion. This expansion, a lot of the decks have been full of legendaries. There've been a lot of really expensive.
Yeah, it's been, and to my point, if that's the way the decks end up being because they made a lot of good cards with Oldham, then maybe they should just make their drop rate sooner, or maybe they change the pity timer for, like, on the day when they know everybody's bought 150 packs, they just make it more often, and then afterwards they just revert it to when you open packs to 40. Reward the people spending money. You know
Well,
what
I
mean?
think it evens out, honestly, because the people who want to have all of the legendaries so that they can play all of the decks are playing a lot and have a lot of dust and have a lot of gold, and that evens out the amount of money they spend on the game. The people who don't are probably only trying to make one deck. They're definitely not looking at all of the decks and all of the legendaries going, oh, how am I going to make all of them? Because that is not their mindset at all. It's like, which one of these decks should I make? Period. 1. Like, maybe 2.
Well, that's an I'd be interested to poll the community. You know, when opening day, is that your concern? Or you want to, like, for me, I want to be able to play whatever the new hotness is and not have to go, well, I guess I can't play that. That's just kind of the way I've approached the game forever, which causes a fair amount of consternation, I won't lie. Or are you the kind of person like, I just want to pick the thing I want to jam with, the thing that I think sounds fun, and that's what I'm going to spend my time and energy and dust and gold on? So
After having talked to my husband, the concern is, are my legendaries good ones? That's new players who don't know. They're like, is this good?
yeah.
And the other thing is, this is my legendary, so I'm going to build a deck around it because this is what I got.
Mm-hmm.
But before they craft anything, it's definitely, please, somebody tell me whether I should craft this. Is it good? Because there's a lot of anxiety over, I only have this much gold, this much dust. If I'm going to craft something, it better be worth my investment. Am I going to craft it and then find out the next day that that deck isn't being played anymore and it's garbage tier, and now I've wasted all of my, you know, that's kind of like the anxiety and the fear of somebody who doesn't have a lot of cards and a lot of dust.
You know, it would help that probably even more than a more regular legendary drop rate is a higher refund value for disenchantment. I mean, as of now, you get a legendary and you disenchant it, you only get 400 dust. You disenchant it, you get maybe if you got 600 dust or 800 dust.
Well, here's the thing. This is why I think they give us a golden legendary, because it represents a legendary. If you don't like it, then it will be a token for whatever you do want. Mm-hmm. It's like this is your free legendary. So I think that after all of the changes they've made, Hearthstone is more affordable than it's ever been.
Agreed.
Out of all the quests that they give you, which give packs, the free legendaries, and the packs from Tavern Brawl, and all of the things that happen when expansion comes around, this has been one of the most expensive expansions we've ever had. And I barely played leading up to it because I was so sick of the meta. So I didn't have a lot of gold. So the way that I made it was by getting the pre-order and then just being really brave with my dusting and kind of going, I've never played this card, I probably never will, and going through my collection and dusting a bunch of cards. And that's what got me enough to build the decks that I wanted to build.
I do that a lot too, actually. I look at a card and say, I've never seen this card on the ladder, not even once.
Yeah.
And if I eat crow on that, then fine. So moving on a
Epics.
little
Go
bit.
for your epics first and your goldens.
Yep. That's what I do. They asked an interesting question. How much do you agree or disagree with the following statements about the value of Hearthstone cards to you? Here's the questions they asked. And they ranked it strongly disagree to strongly agree. It said, I get good entertainment value for the money I spend playing Hearthstone. They focused a lot on entertainment. The Tombs of Terror Adventure pre-purchase bundle was fairly priced. Is it necessary for players to spend money in order to stay competitive in Hearthstone?
Yes.
I said, oh yeah. It's been proven that you can certainly climb to legend on nothing. You know, Disguised Toast has done it. A lot of people have done it. But I guess define competitive, you know. You can't compete in tournaments without all the cards, that's for sure. I get good entertainment value for the time I spend playing Hearthstone. You know, define entertainment. Something to do, or like you in general, you're laughing and joking and having a good time. I don't know. The next one was Saviors of Oldham pre-purchase bundle of 50 packs plus random gold legendary card back was fairly priced. Same question for the 80. Same thing for the 20. And it says, interesting, is necessary for players to spend money in order to have fun in Hearthstone. So subjective question, agree or disagree, you know.
Because whiz bang.
Because whiz bang. Which we had a whole show on.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like if you take that golden legendary you got and make whiz bang, if you didn't have it, then you've got a bunch of decks and you can have fun. But I do believe, I mean, obviously the pros are playing so much that they probably have enough gold and dust to just craft all the cards they need every expansion and never pay a cent. But unless
More or less.
you're that level of playing hours every day, yes, you absolutely need to spend money on the game in order to be competitive. You don't in order to have fun.
Well, what do you think of this one? This one I thought was a super interesting question. It said classic card packs are fairly priced.
No.
I actually think they
wouldn't.
should be significantly cheaper.
I think so too.
Or more packs for the same money. I said disagree. I was like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
they're definitely way overpriced. They shouldn't, because they're so old and anymore, a lot of the really strong cards in Classic have rotated out in the Classic set, not the basic set, but the Classic set. I was like, no, these are.
They should
way too
take a hit on
expensive.
that one, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it would just be like a good faith thing for the community.
And it would make the community or new players get into it easier.
Yeah.
So check. It asked me to rate my experience with the following features in Hearthstone in the last 30 days. Features meaning arena mode rewards, class balance, smart deck builder, esports tournaments, casual mode, latest solo adventure, Tombs of Terror, ranked mode, monthly rewards, etc. So that was an interesting one because they're basically asking me, do you like what you're getting out of it? Do you like what you get to do? You know, are you playing the modes at all? And they went from very bad to very good, and then it had not familiar with this feature. So like if you never play Arena, you'd probably select not familiar.
Right.
Personally, I don't think that the rewards for Arena is very good. Considering to be decent at it, you have to kind of be a good player. And it's like, yeah, invest 150 gold, and I know all the metrics and the math and stuff like that. But unless you just enjoy that type of deck building format, and then that type of scenario, I just don't think the rewards are very good for it, personally. But feel free to at me, I guess. But I totally just like they asked a lot of questions about rating my experience with those things, like very bad to very good, or I didn't know. Same questions. They asked me to rate my experience with the following features. Features like interface and controls, like do you like the way the interface is, deck recipes, daily quests, Hearthstone community. Rate the community. I thought that was odd because they can't really control the community. Fireside gatherings, wild mode, card balance, and
there are games that are like known for being toxic communities, like League of Legends, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there is kind of a way that they can influence the community around their games based on how they react to people. And yeah, I think it's a little vague, but yeah, I do think that they do have a bit of an influence over how they're seen as a company and kind of what they encourage and what they stand for and what they tolerate. That does kind of affect the community that surrounds a game.
Well, and the other thing that, so, they tick all these things off: deck recipes, quests, things like that, community. At the bottom of the list, they said reborn mechanic. The reborn mechanic has been questioned a couple times in this survey, which makes me think they're looking at nerfing it or changing it or never using it again or something like that. Because reborn mechanic I think it's busted. I think the reborn mechanic is super good, or has potential to be busted.
I mean, remember way back in Goblins versus Gnomes, where Sledge Belcher was like one of the best cards ever made? And now all of the reborn cards are Sledge Belchers.
Basically.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at it that way, and piloted Shredder, like, yeah.
The next thing they asked me was how important modes and features are to me. See, they would ask like a similar question. They would retool the wording, how important it is to me. They want to know what I value in the game: ranked mode, class balance, esports tournaments, arena mode, etc., like that. What else? How important is each of the following features are into Hearthstone? Specific reborn mechanic. Is it important to you at all? They actually asked that. Wild mode, is wild important? Deck recipes, are those important? It's almost like they're trying to get the information of what is it does the community value, so we know what to work on next.
Well, I think deck recipes is huge. Because being able to take it off of somebody's Twitter, put it into your thing, and immediately have the deck. You remember back when we had to go, okay, he's got 2 of those.
Oh,
go,
man.
Search it up, put it in. He's got 2 of those. He's got 1 of those.
That's just the code.
Gosh.
That's the deck importing feature. That's not the recipes. That's the feature, of just copying it and pasting.
You're right. You're talking about for deck recipes, like the ones that they put in the game that you can use.
Yeah, that's what they put in. How important is that to you? For me, it's I like the idea of it, but it's not important to me because I would rather find out what Johnny Professional is playing out there and just copy his stuff, not what Blizzard suggests.
I would say it's been very helpful to me in the first couple days of a new expansion. Because for me, I think that, like we've talked about this before because they're the whiz-bang decks, is that they're a melding of fun and cards that they actually think are going to be competitive in the meta. And that sort of points me in the right direction. Like, I get to look in a dev's head and go, they put these cards together. They have this kind of a deck in mind. This might be something that will be good if I tweak it and I take some out and I put some in until, it's actually competitive and gives me a starting point. So yes, I absolutely think that they're super helpful to new players and also for people that aren't that great at deck building to kind of give you a starting place to go from. And then you can tweak it as you go instead of starting at ground zero. So yeah, I think they're really important. But much more the pasting deck code thing. Thank gosh.
I mean, situationally, some of this stuff seems more important than others. They asked me to describe, actually, type in what I liked about Saviors of Uldum, Tombs of Terror, and they just had me describe what I didn't like. They asked me how satisfied I was with the following events, like the release of the when they released Saviors of Uldum, like the 2 tavern brawls and legendary quests that rewarded card packs, the Fire Fest Evil, those kinds of things, the things that
was
we've
very
raved
well
about.
received.
Fire Fest Evil was awesome. asked me basically if I was interested in esports and stuff like that. And it's like, gosh, I haven't watched an esports thing other than a highlight ever, just because that takes too much time out of my day that I don't have, to watch people play Hearthstone. Thinking about the new Saviors of Oldham expansion, how much do you agree with each of the following statements? Things like, there are cards I was looking forward to trying out release. Disagree all the way to agree. I'm excited to tell my friends about this. Every class got exciting cards. Agree or disagree. I'm satisfied with the number of cards.
Such a weird question. I'm excited to talk to my friends about this.
Well,
it's such a weird question.
The thing is the friends I The friends that I talk to about Hearthstone are the people who are already playing, because the people that don't play aren't going to play.
Yes. Like,
that's the thing. So it's
the friends that I talk to about it are my Hearthstone friends. They're not
Right.
my anything else friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Because-
the reason we're friends is because of Hearthstone, and that's it. Like,
Yeah,
my
you find an
other
average
friends
person-
who are just like people in my life aren't gamers.
Nope. And even if they are, a lot of people who are gamers have no desire to play a card style game. I mean, it's just a certain kind of person that wants to play Magic or Hearthstone or
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
It asked if do I agree that my friends and I enjoy this expansion. The theme of the expansion fits the overall theme of Hearthstone. Kind of asking, are we on the right track with our own little universe, kind of things.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Out of the park, people. You hit it out of the park.
It asked me, like, now that you've had time to experience Saviors of Oldham, how do you feel about it? Greatly disappointed to greatly exceeded expectations.
Yeah.
Compared with other expansions, how did I feel about it? Was it better, worse? And that was kind of more or less it. But it was just interesting that it was very opinion based. And I know that's what a survey is, in the sense of like before and after. It was interesting. Like, how did you feel about the game before it was released? Were you buying the expansions? Did you know about it?
Well, that's probably like, do you feel like you got a value for your buck kind of thing? Like, were you excited and then let down? Or were you like, whatever, and then you were, oh, actually, this is really good. And that kind of, that probably tells them a bit about their advertising as well.
Well, it's such a mixed emotion, because I can look at the game objectively and say, yes, the game is objectively better than it has been. It's improved, There's a lot of great things happening. And then when I get a little more subjective in my own mind, it's like, yeah, but I don't enjoy playing certain decks. Like, if I want to be good and climb, I probably should play Quest Shaman. But I don't really want to play Quest Shaman. You know what I mean? Or whatever the best deck is, if it's not a deck I like playing, then it seems to oddly negate all the positive things that the devs are doing in the game. You know what I mean? So something that is controlling my feelings about the game that has nothing to do with the devs, other than they made the card. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well,
what do you think?
When you were talking about Reborn, and we were both kind of going, yeah, it is kind of crazy powerful. The thing is that every deck has something crazy powerful going on, which is why Reborn hasn't stuck out so much that we're like, this is so broken. How could you make it? Bad design, yada, yada. Because the power level is kind of crazy. And I like that. Like, when things are too safe and baseline and not broken, they're boring.
Sure. And there's a fine line there between too broken and boring.
And they can take risks because they know they're going to cycle them out, which is kind of what I want from Hearthstone, is for them to take risks and then be quick to pull it back if everyone's going, this is broken, this is awful, and, nerf them if they need to be nerfed, but not start out an expansion going, we'll make this even and this even and this even, and then everyone's just kind of like, blah. But like Reborn, but also double battle cries.
I would much rather have them go, oh, sorry, JK lol, just our bad. We're gonna tweak this. We shouldn't have released this card. It was too powerful, knowing all the time that they knew it would be powerful. And I'd rather have that and have them recant, I guess you could say, their cards, than just
Like,
have
otherwise we
everything
never would have
perfectly
had
vanilla.
the glorious week where Purple Worm was everywhere.
Right. The purple worm that still is commonly
Corridor Creeper,
played in
yeah.
decks. Yeah.
And then Druid, you get both of the choose one things, and like all of these cards where I was playing a bunch of them in the dungeon run, and it was like, oh, this is a really good card. And then I was like, wait a minute, I don't have the druid quest. So actually, this isn't a really good card.
It's amazing how that quest can make things that are not good, good.
Like, I kept looking at it through the veil of not having the druid quest on, and I was suddenly like, I don't want any of these cards in my deck. When you were making the Elise, like, did you?
Yeah.
I can't remember who tweeted it out. I think it was Garrett from the Angry Chicken, but he was like, anyone else kind of feel like the weakest starting deck and hero power and everything is Elise in the dungeon run? And I was like, yeah. Because everyone else had like cool broken mechanics happening, and she was just kind of like a druid. Because we've been playing with the quest in standard, which feels way more powerful and broken than what she started out with in the dungeon run. I'm like, I have all of these cards that go along with a quest, but no quest.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I actually had a similar thought on my own this week about that when I was playing that wing. So, well, we were about an hour, Eve. I think we should hit the new deck of the week. There's not much to talk about it. It's pretty straightforward, but I think it's a cool deck as a recommendation for climbing on wild. I think I'm like 10-4 with it.
Holy moly.
With this deck. So SilentNick's Anyfin Paladin. I haven't played an Anyfin Paladin in a while, and I saw that he posted it, and I looked at the list, and I was super intrigued by whether this deck was fun to play, because it has a lot of goofy stuff in it. We'll just put it this way. Prismatic Lens allows you to win on turn 4 or 5, or sooner, depending.
Right.
Prismatic Lens,
which is pretty normal, right?
Is dumb if you get it, because in case you don't know it, but I'm sure everybody knows, but it pulls a minion and a spell, and it swaps their costs, right? So here's the list. The list is 2 Argent Squires, 2 Grimscale Oracles, which are the Murloc that it's a 1/1 that gives all your Murlocs +1.
And that's
2
the one
Righteous
you want to
Protectors.
pull, by the way. You want to pull that out with the Prismatic Lens so that it becomes 1.
Or any 1-drop, for that matter. 1-drops 2 Bluegill Warriors, 2 Loot Hoarders, 2 Shield Mini Bots, High Priest the Call, 2 Ironbeak Owl, 2 Murloc War Leaders, 2 Unidentified Mauls, Eater of Secrets, ×1, because Secret Mage is a thing, especially if you get higher up on the ladder. Old Murkai, our buddy. 2 Prismatic Lenses, Lotheb, Ziliax, Tip the Scales, which is the 8-cost Murloc spell where it basically yanks 7 Murlocs out of your deck. 1 Anyfin Can Happen, and 2 Molten Giants. So...
Wait a minute. So you have a bit of a chance that Tip the Scales will come out with Lotheb, Ziliax, or a 20-cost Molten Giant? Or if that happens and you've taken a bunch of damage, is it the cost of the downgraded Molten Giant?
No, it's 20. It's 20.
With no way to change the cost of the spell, so you now cannot cast it.
Yeah, it paints you into a corner pretty quick. Oh my gosh. So this deck is, like, in my mind, the definition of the high rolliest deck ever. So, I mean, general win cons. You have 2 win cons that you're always going for. One is hard mull all the time for Prismatic Lens. You get Prismatic Lens by turn 4. Most of the time, you're going to be dropping Tip the Scales and have a board full of Murlocs, and if you pull all of the Murlocs, like you play it on a blank board on your side, you have OTK damage in your hand. Boom. You can hit lethal on that turn. Okay. The other win con is if you can get... You always also keep High Priest the Call, and if you have a Molten Giant plus High Priest, or both of them, you keep those always. Because it's impossible on turn 2 or 3, depending on when you can drop the Call, to take care of a Molten Giant. It's just very difficult to deal with. People will oftentimes concede. Turn 3, the Call, Molten Giant, and they just go, poof, they're out. They might valiantly try. It's just really hard to overcome 11 damage.
There's no Murloc Tide Collars in this deck.
Nope. No Murloc Tide Collars.
That is weird.
Yeah. So, like the dumbest turn ever is when you can... especially if you're like playing against a priest or something, is you've played Prismatic Lens, and it swaps it for a 1-cost minion, right?
Uh-huh.
So you have a 1-cost, like let's say it swaps it for an Argent Squire, right? So now you have, I'm blanking out here. It's the spell Tip the Scales. So you have a 1-cost Tip the Scales. So you play on turn 6, Tip the Scales, and then you drop Loatheb. And they can't do anything to you. It's like you've locked them down. It's just very mean. I win a lot of games on turn 5 and 6 and 7, and you just blast them down. You can also flip games. So the thing is if you don't kind of get your Tip the Scales out or whatnot, if you don't, and they start building a board, they can get you down real bad, and sometimes you can just come back from nowhere with Tip the Scales finally, or anything can happen if you've kind of piecemealed your Murlocs out. Of the 3 or 4 games that I've lost with this deck, 3 of them were because my opponent high rolled even more than I did. So, like, for example, today I had this crazy game where I was playing against a rogue, and it was one of the rogues where they shuffle in, the bunch of cards in from your class. And what's the dragon that heals you to full health? What's the dragon? It's
Oh, right. Yeah. It's a bronze one that they just brought out.
Yeah.
Didn't
I'm
they?
blanking out on her name.
Yeah.
So, but this rogue, I had him down to 1 health, and they dragoned. They dragoned and filled us both back up to full health. And then he sapped it back into Nazari. So, and then I did it again, and he somehow I made the choice to go face because he had used all of his stuff, and somehow he got Nazari back into his hand again, and I just couldn't overcome it because he had already used up all my stuff. And the only thing that would have won it for me is if I had top decked anything can happen.
Okay, I'm sorry if you've said this already, because I've been like reading all of these cards and going, what? There's literally only 7 Murlocs in the deck.
Yep.
So you don't want them in your mulligan because you want to pull them out of your deck.
Yes. Yeah, you never keep Murlocs in your mulligan.
You want like Argent Squire, Righteous Protector, Loot Hoarder, Shielded Minibot, High Priest the Cowl, things like that. You throw back any Murlocs that you get because you want to pull them out with Prismatic Lens.
Right.
Because you pull Anyfin Can Happen and make it cost 1, that doesn't do you anything because they have to die first.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the mirror match. Because it says 7 Murlocs that died this game, so you can pull your opponent's Murlocs.
So shamans can kind of muddy the pool because they do play Murlocs.
Yeah.
And especially even if it's like a quest shaman where not everything they play is Murlocs that are good, that can kind of muddy the pool. Generally you always want to keep Argent Squires, Righteous Protectors, those ones. Maybe a Loot Hoarder because it's good to draw cards. High Priest of the Call for sure. Molten Giant only if you have High Priest of the Call in your hand. Don't keep a Molten Giant if you don't have High Priest, because you don't have High Priest, you're just stuck with a 20-cost minion that you're not going to get to play for a while. And then you always keep Prismatic Lens, always. Against a mage, I might keep Eater of Secrets, because the last thing you want to do is try to cast Prismatic Lens or Tip the Scales when they might have a counterspell, because that just feels bad. So I would keep Eater of Secrets to slow their tempo down a little bit, because they could still just destroy you.
And if they had that one where, like, after they take damage, they do 3 damage to all minions, that one sucks too.
Yeah, that one. So, like, if you know you're playing against mage
Flame
and they got
Ward?
a tree full of secrets, Flame Ward, yeah, that. But I mean, if you play, odds are you'll get your Tip the Scales or Anyfin or whatever you're trying to do cheapened a lot, so that you could reasonably play later game Eater of Secrets into Tip the Scales or Anything Can Happen, so you're not just totally just letting them destroy you. It's
But
still going to be a
only
tough
one
match.
Eater of Secrets?
Just one. I'm not even sure of how good it is. There's actually 2 owls in it, which is interesting. Now, why 2 owls? For
Taunt.
Warlock and Priest. That's all. Because, the obsidian statues are a thing. What else? That and Void Daddy, Void Lord. So, they drop their Void Daddy and you're like, no, and you just leave it alone. You just ignore it, because Who cares?
You don't
You're 3
want it to
damage.
die because then you'll have a million little daddies or little void.
Yep. Now,
Babies.
cube lock could be a bit of an issue, but
Yes.
generally speaking, the deck is just
Well, by the
games
time
go
they
by
start
pretty
doing their
fast.
shenanigans, hopefully you've already done your thing.
Yeah. You don't really want to go deep in the game because the deck is sort of designed to have a big busted turn and you pretty much win. You know, that's how you want the game to go. That's ideal.
This is a scary deck to play. Like, there are so many ways that you could end up just painted into a corner.
Yep. And it happens. I mean, but honestly, it doesn't happen as much as you'd think it would. I mean, you have those moments where, like, for example, you know, you get Anyfin can happen. Like, one of the games, I would have won. I Prismatic Lens. I'm like, all right, baby, here comes Prismatic Lens. I knew it was in my deck. All I had to do was pull any minion that wasn't Old Murkai. Any minion that wasn't Old Murkai and get Tip the Scales. I knew all that was in there was Tip the Scales. And, of course, what minion do I swap with? And Old Murkai. And it's like, the foe. What is going on with this? So, I mean, that happens. And sometimes you just got to laugh. You're just like, okay, all right, I'm out. That I was destined to not
I just
win
won
this
my
game.
10 games in a row, so I guess I can take one on the chin for that.
I think that was early on. I won 2 and I lost 1 and I was about to lose. I was going to win this one, but then I drew so bad, and then I was 2-2, and then I proceeded just to fly up the ladder. I think I climbed like 4 ranks in an hour. I was like, I mean, it's just busted because the games don't last long. If you draw a Prismatic Lens, the game's going to be over pretty quick, unless you just get super unlucky, which doesn't happen as often as you might think. So, anyways, but
That's
the deck is
interesting.
super fun. I highly recommend it. You know, there's not a tremendous amount of expensive cards in it. I mean, I guess maybe there's some legendaries, but Ziliacs, and the reason I say not expensive is because a lot of people have Ziliacs.
Yeah, but
If
not a
you
lot
played
of these people have High Priest the Call.
Maybe not. So it's hard. Maybe I'm wrong. But Lotheb, if you're playing Wild, you probably have Lotheb.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And Old Murkai you get from just having all of the Murlocs. They give it
Well,
to
you
you.
used to, not anymore.
Oh, no. That's how I
They
got him.
They discontinued that when I made Wild.
Now you have to craft him.
You had one back. So those of you who don't know, back in the day, if you had one of every classic Murloc, you just randomly got Old Murkai for free. Once you got one of each one.
Was it one of each? I thought you had to get 2 of each.
Nope, you just had to have one.
Okay.
So a war
Yeah,
leader.
well, Molten Giant you should have
Bluegill,
if you're
etc.
playing Wild. Tip the Scales is epic, but you know, if you're playing Paladin, you probably have to tip the scales.
Well,
and
if you're playing
Prismatic
Murloc
Lens.
Paladin, finally, Dude Paladin is sort of on the back burner as far as power is concerned. But that deck was so good for so long that nobody's sad about that. So, anyways,
Yeah,
all right. Well,
these are all good.
Eve, we're at well over an hour. We're at hour 17. So I guess it's time to sign off. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at LoremasterEve. Next week we're going to be talking about new Patreon goals. So,
Yep.
so get ready for that. Grant and I have been talking. You know, change is good. So new Patreon goals. Is there something that you would like to see and that you would be willing to sub to Patreon for? Because we're going to be talking about it.
Yep. Yep, we'll be doing that. So, you know, maybe we should probably put a channel on the Discord for that, just so people want to drop their 2 cents in there.
Well, I mean, you
literally
could
and
probably
figuratively.
just do it on the show one. Show discussion.
Okay, that works.
Talk about it in show discussion if you would like to talk about things that you would like to see from us that you think would be worth your money subbing to Patreon, rewards, goals, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Or tweet at us. My
tweeting
DMs
is
are
fine.
open.
Yep. If you want to find anything and all things Velen's Chosen, go on over to www.velenschosen.com. Follow any of the links there for Discord, Patreon, anything like that. If you want to leave us a review, that'd be very helpful. iTunes reviews are always great. We'll read them on the show. Thank you with, you know, a bit of tears in our eyes and, you know, calm, reflective nature. Anyways, if you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at WatchmanHS. I've been reposting a bunch of deck lists beginning of the month. Everybody's like, hey, this is the deck I got to Legend in 24 hours with. So I've been reposting that stuff just because that's what I do. If you want to friend me in game, Watchman #1140. And for those of you, I am just apologizing profusely. Some of you guys and gals out there are super, super nice and say, hey, you want 80 gold? And I'll be in the middle of a game. And I'll lose the game. I'll say, hey, can you wait until after the game? They'll say, sure, because they're good-natured people. I'll lose the game, and I'll get super tilted. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to queue up another game. And I forget that I actually agreed to play 80 Gold Quest. I'm so interested in getting that win back that I just mindlessly hit the button. And about 2 games into that, I realized, dang. Somebody asked me to play 80 Gold Quest. Well, I guess there goes 80 gold. And I was rude, and I'm really sorry. And I'm sorry. So if I did that to you this last week or two, I apologize. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it on purpose. I just get really hyper-focused on winning sometimes. So anyways, all right. Eve, sign us off.
Shout out to Matthew Dudley. Matthew Dudley for editing their pledge on Patreon and upping their pledge. Really appreciate it. And not all who
Awesome.
wander
Thank
are
you.
lost.
Ta-ta.
Goodbye, everybody.
I foresaw this.
Did I miss it?